There's no reason why that couldn't be your story.
You don't have an expiration date.
I love that.
The actual pages. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is the Authors and Agents podcast. Emily, I'm super excited to have you here with me today. I can't wait to hear about your journey and your book. So let's start off by having you tell me about Call of the Sea, which comes out February 13th.
Yeah, so it is a new adult fantasy romance. I pitch it as gender-bent Little Mermaid meets Brave. So it's about a fat human princess who wants nothing more than to live a life of adventure on the ocean instead of rule. And it's in a Scottish-inspired world, and then her parents are forcing her into this marriage festival to marry one of the clan chief's sons, which she wants no part of, until something happens and she ends up following someone out to sea where she gets shipwrecked and ends up stranded on an island alone with him.
That sounds so exciting. It has, definitely themes like that will feel familiar, like Little Mermaid, Brave, but I love that it's a little bit swapped, a little unique. I'm super excited. I know you've been posting and it's been showing up on some really cool lists of people who are like, I can't wait for this book.
Oh my gosh, it's gotten onto so many specifically asexual spectrum lists, which just makes me so happy. Kenna is demisexual. I am demisexual. And it was kind of like I was learning that identity of myself while I was writing Kenna. And so she didn't start demisexual. I didn't start demisexual when I was writing it. And so it's just really cool to see this like journey that I went on with Kenna as I was writing her. And now other people are excited about that representation. And it's something that I literally heard the term of when I was reading books that had that representation in it and went, that feels right for me, actually. So it's really cool to go from that to my book being on these lists of like books that I read that helped me figure out part of who I was. So it's just really cool.
That's wonderful. And hopefully your book can continue that on, right? Like somebody will pick it up and be like, oh, wait, this is actually feels really familiar.
Wait a second. Am I that?
Right. That seems like me. Well,
exactly.
How exciting. So give me a little rundown. Tell me a little bit about your journey to this point. Up through this. So you are indie publishing. So tell me about that choice and how that's looked for you.
Yeah, so while I was writing, originally I wanted to traditionally publish this book. That was the original goal, and so I wrote it as a young adult fantasy when I started. But I started writing this when I was 20 for a class in college, and it just, like, there weren't any stories of people my age when I was writing this. There were teenage books and there were adult books. Right. There was nothing for that, like, 20 to 26 age. Exactly. Yeah. And now I guess I was 21 when I started writing it. Anyways, but because now I'm 25. It's 4 years later. And, but when I'm writing it, I just was like, oh, I had her 19. I was like, I want her to be older because I want her to be like closer to the age that I am. And like people who are my age can read a story that's like coming of age, not when you're 15 and finding the person you fall in love with when you're 15, because that doesn't happen very often.
Not usually.
No. And it does happen sometimes. And I'm so happy for those people that it does have. Like, it's such a sweet story. It's beautiful. Yeah. But like, that is not everyone's experience. No. And so, and then there are some people like, I don't know, I just never had books that fit that age group. And so I had started writing it as YA, but just have her as 19, so push it as much as I could. Because new adult wasn't a genre in 2020 when I started writing this book. Or like, it wasn't an official genre, and it's still not a fully official genre, but it's more recognized.
Right. I think it's more recognized, like, after the fact, right? Like people are like, oh, this person, the character is in this age range, so let's call it new adult. But I feel like traditional publishing still doesn't market anything as new adult, exactly. Do they, right?
Exactly. So I started writing as YA, and it just, like, didn't really feel right, but I thought that I had to leave it that way because I knew traditional publishing wouldn't pick up a book that I was pitching as new adult.
Right, of course.
And then she was fat, and she was demisexual, and she had ADHD, and I was like, I don't know how all of things are gonna sell in traditional publishing. And I was like, I was very adamant about having a fat girl on the cover. And I was like, I have heard so many stories about authors who write fat rep and they don't have fat characters on the cover. And people are mad at the author, but the author tried as hard as they could and their publisher refused.
Right.
So it's like they had the choice to get this story published and have people read it, or to fight the publisher and potentially lose their book contract. And that is not, there's no good answer in that situation. So you can't be mad at any author who chooses to still publish their book with fat rep with a skinny person on the cover if they didn't have control over it. Yeah. So just all of these things were happening, and I just said, you know what? I'm just going to do it indie, because I was seeing how many amazing indie published fantasy romances were out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are all so incredible. And I should just do that. I would have all the control. And when I did that, I was like, okay, let's officially make this new adult. So I aged her up. I tried to change the story a little bit. Yeah. So that's kind of how that happened.
I love it. You know, I think there are pros and cons to each side of publishing, right? Traditional indie. But I love that you are able to make that decision and take that plunge, because it's a lot of work. It is, you're doing all the pieces that, you know, in traditional publishing, you have a whole team for, and your cover is amazing. Like, so beautiful. So
yes, wait.
I
show
have
it here with me.
Gorgeous.
I am so obsessed with it. I still just like stare at it. I don't know how I found this guy, but he was incredible.
That's amazing. You know, we love great cover designers. Thank you.
Yeah. No, literally.
Well, I'd love to know what so far. I mean, you're not to pub date yet, but going through all of the work of getting everything ready to be published, you know, on your own, what's your favorite part of being, you know, indie publishing, and then your least favorite part so far, or maybe the hardest part?
The hardest part is the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am, again, the representation that Kenna has is me. It's who I am. I also have ADHD, and I am not medicated or anything like that, and it is really hard, and I face burnout almost on a daily basis. So trying to keep on top of marketing, keep on top of all the back end work that has to go into updating my website, updating my shop, updating all of this stuff, keeping on top of that, answering DMs, making social media posts, while also I was trying to write the second book. I paused that for now because I did not have the energy to do both. And then like having a social life, reading other books, watching shows, hanging out with my roommate, going to work, all of this stuff. It's really, really hard balancing it all. And I don't even have a full-time job. So I can't imagine people who do have a full-time job. Though I feel like stressing about money is also a full-time job for me because I don't have a full-time job. But,
I think, you know, obviously we do it because we love it, right? It's such a labor of love, but it is a business. It's like a part-time job. So you do have a full-time job in the sense that you have a part-time job and you have another part-time job.
Well, I also run a shop, so I have another one as well.
Yeah. I mean, there is so much behind the scenes that goes into it. And I feel like too, for me, the social media aspect of it all, like, is so great, but it also, is so exhausting because you see all those people who like go viral on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and then everything blows up. And so I feel like we're all trying to replicate that to a certain extent, but also they get mad, like Instagram gets mad at you if you don't post every single day or whatever they tell you to do now. That for me is probably the hardest part. Like, I don't love to live and die by my phone, and posting on Instagram, that's the hard part.
And it's like a big mental health like thing as well, to be like watching other people do the same thing you are and like explode, and you're like, why can't I do that? What's wrong with me? And it's like this whole, you have to be like, no. It sometimes it is just completely random, and it's not to say they don't deserve it, but it's not to say that you don't deserve it either. It just doesn't always happen for everyone.
Yeah. And I will say, a lot of the times I've seen those books that like explode, or, you know, they come across your explore page, there's I feel like most of the time the author isn't the one posting about it. It's readers too, right? Which is
Yeah.
then so it's all so complicated and convoluted.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I hear you on the energy one. To flip it and let's talk about your favorite part. What's been the best
Yeah.
part about going through indie?
I honestly like I don't know, I just kind of even though it's hard, I love all of it. So I can't really say like a favorite best part because I loved getting to pick my own cover. I
Yeah,
loved the feeling of teaching myself how to format a book and then
yeah.
seeing a book that I formatted be a physical form. Because originally I was going to hire someone to book format and then I ended up doing it myself. So it was just really cool, like the pride I felt in myself and like that I allowed myself to feel pride because often I'm very hard on myself. And so when I like gave myself a moment to be like, wow, I did that. I wrote a book, I formatted it. The only thing I didn't really do is the cover. And obviously editing. I found like the best editor. I love her so much. So like I think like the connections in indie publishing and like the feelings of accomplishment, those are probably my favorite parts.
I love that. Yeah. The feeling of holding it in your hands and you're like, oh my gosh, I did so much. Look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. So I know we've talked a little bit about this already, but what are some things you hope people readers take away from Call of the Sea?
I want feel people to feel seen. Like that's always been the biggest thing for me. Like I want fat people to see themselves in Kenna. I want people who struggle with neurodivergence to see themselves in Kenna, whether that be ADHD or autism or anything like that. Because they are different, but they do fall under the same umbrella. And a
Yeah.
lot of the things with Kenna, because I don't use terms in the book, a lot of it is just about feeling different and not feeling like she can function the way other people she see function.
Right.
um or people who are demisexual to see themselves, because I feel like the asexual spectrum is still like the least represented queer identity in the book world, and I'd love to see more of it, and we are seeing so much more of it, which is amazing. So just to people to feel seen, which I already have had a few early reviewers like mention either in the review or DM me like, oh my gosh, I felt so see. I was literally like crying about it. Someone even DM'd me this morning and said, oh, Call of the Sea was my favorite book of January. And I was like,
Oh,
that
that's
was
the
the first time
best.
that's ever happened. And like, oh, it just felt so good.
That's amazing. I that is
Yeah.
the best feeling, right?
Yeah, it really is.
So, I know you've got tons going on, lots to do. So when you do read, who are some of your favorite authors to read and why do you love them?
Ooh, okay. My problem is that I cannot pick favorites because I love everything.
So what are maybe like
Some
some
of
of
my
your most
all-time favorites.
yeah, there we
Yeah.
go.
Chloe Lisa, one of my all-time favorites. Definitely huge inspiration for me in my writing and in my belief of wanting to tell stories of people who are underrepresented, for sure. I love Maisie Eddings as well, Talia Hibbert, Helen Huang. Um, and some more recent like fantasy romance authors that I've loved are Kate Golden and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name, but she wrote Trial of the Sun Queen. Um,
Mm.
J. Tooley. I just can't remember. Nisha J. Tooley. Her last name is Tooley, but I can't remember her first name. um,
Nisha J. Tooley. Yeah,
is
Nisha.
that yeah? Okay, I
Yep.
was right. Nisha J. Tooley. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
her. Speaking of Nishas, I love Nisha Sharma. That's my current read right now. I'm reading Tastes Like Shikar. Love Nisha Sharma. Yeah, I feel like those are some of my current favorites because it's always every time
Oh
I
yeah.
read a new book by a new author, I'm like, oh my god, my new favorite.
Yep. Yeah. Every book I read that I love is my favorite.
Exactly.
So I'd love for you to share some advice for aspiring authors, people who are, have a story they want to tell. They want to traditionally publish, indie publish, whatever they want to do. But what advice would you give to them?
I would say just like do whatever feels right to you. There's so much writing advice out there. There's so much publishing advice out there. And it's all contradicting itself.
Yes.
And that's because
definitely.
different things work for different people. So it's not to say one way is right, one way is wrong. Like, if you think your story would be better in indie, publish indie, and don't listen to the stupid people who try to say you need, like, indie's the fallback for if you can't get traditionally published. No,
Right.
that's not true. Don't listen to that. If you think it'll be best in traditional publishing, you don't give up. Keep querying until it finds the right home. Like, I just feel like people want to inundate everyone with their advice and say, this is the way you need to do it. And it's like, no, you need to do what's right for you. So listen to all of the advice, take in all of the advice, and then do what feels good to you.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. And I think too, it's like, be okay if you've collect this advice and you try something and you're like, oh, that didn't work. Be okay with that and be like, that doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're bad at this. Try something different. You know, when I first started writing, like, really seriously, I remember just from like school and all of that, you know, like, they told you a very specific way that you had to start something. You had to outline detailed and all these things. And that works for some writers, I know, and that's wonderful. It did not work for me. And I was like, I couldn't make it through because I already, like, outlining so detailed takes all the mystery out of writing the story for me. But I had to be able to be like, okay, that didn't work, and I'm going to try something different, and that is okay. I'm still a good writer. I'm still a writer, even though I don't outline, right? Like, that's a very basic, you know, thing to take advice about and to Google, right? Like, how do you start to write a book? But I think
you need to outline first. Yeah.
Right. I think that's such a good thing to remember because, yes, you will hear so much conflicting advice on every little piece of being an author.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just hard because, like, it'll make you feel like a bad author sometimes, or like that you can't even call yourself an author because you don't do it the way other people are doing it. And so it's just like, there's already so much like gatekeeping and all that kind of stuff. Like, don't contribute to it. Don't do it to yourself. Like,
don't pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. That is definitely a good reminder. So we've got Call of the Sea, which is like a romancy fantasy. What, like, other genres would you love to try if you were to genre hop with some of your next books?
So, I never planned to write fantasy romance, actually. This was an accident, and
I love that.
I'm working on the sequel, which is like, basically, I'm writing this like a rom-com series because rom-coms are the books of my heart.
Yes, and then, like, where they're all like interconnected, but like in the same world.
Yes.
Oh, so I love it.
The sequel is a standalone sequel about her brother's love story. So that is the only other fantasy romance book I have any plans to write anytime soon.
Okay.
The rest of my books are going to be adult rom-coms. I literally have a notes app in my phone of like 11 different rom-com ideas that I'm dying to write, but I'm a very slow writer. So my brain is like, ooh, shiny new idea, but I don't write fast enough, so I have so many shiny new ideas that I need to figure out which one I want to write first after I'm done. But it kind of happened by accident. I needed a project to write for my novel writing class in school. And I had this short story that I had written for an Instagram short story writing contest that did not win the short story writing contest, but it was like a 2,000 words. The only thing is it has to be related to the ocean. So I wrote this little, like, random little thing where a girl falls into the ocean and a merman saves her, but she has to choose her duty instead of her heart. So she leaves him and goes back to her kingdom. And that's the whole, like, little thing. And it was called Under the Sea. Very creative, I know.
Super original, but, you know, it led you to where you are now.
Definitely not the title in a Little Mermaid movie or anything
song,
like that.
Right?
No. So I had to write something for this class, and Little Mermaid has been like my hyperfixation my whole life. I don't have an answer for why I'm obsessed with mermaids. I just always have been.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, what if I like took this little seed from this short story and wrote an entire novel instead and made it a Little Mermaid retelling? and I'll just set it in a Scotland-inspired world, and then, oh wait, there's a marriage festival. Maybe it's Little Mermaid meets Brave, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Originally, I was just going to write it for the class. But then I met someone named Maha. Her handle is One True Daydreamer. She's a bookstagrammer and a writer herself. And we ended up becoming first writing friends and then critique partners. And she helped me finish writing it. And so if I hadn't had her, I may never have finished the story. I would not have finished the story if I had just been writing it for the class, but she was reading every chapter as I wrote it.
Oh, I love
and
that.
She really helped me, like, encourage me to finish the story. So
no.
Maha is the reason that this book exists, for sure.
Thank you, Maha. Thank you.
No, literally.
I love having friends like that, right? Like, I remember in the great days of Twitter, writing Twitter, finding so many good critique partners and friends that way. Currently, I have a friend who's not a writer at all, but just like a very avid reader, who I give all my stuff to her because I'm like, you can tell me if this is bad or not, right? She's read so many books. And the best is when she's like, okay, do you have more? And I'm like, I literally haven't written anything past that. And she's like, do it now. And I'm like,
write more then.
I'm writing. I'm finishing an adult romance right now. And she's like, I told her, I was like, you need to hound me every single day. I want to finish it this week. And she's like, okay, I'm going to, because I can't wait to see what happens, right? Like, it's so wonderful to have friends who motivate you in that way and keep, not like the pressure on you, but sometimes the pressure on you to be like, okay, I'm actually going to do it now.
No, and her story is also amazing. And I'm currently hounding her. And it just goes to show, like, it also just kind of goes to show how it works, because she wants to traditionally publish hers, and hers would be so perfect in the traditionally published world. So it's like, it's really cool to see, like, we are literally the proof that not one writing path works for one person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are many different writing paths, and that is okay. I for the longest time was that person who was like, I'm only ever going to be traditionally published. And look at me now. I indie published last year, but I think there's time and a place for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I feel like we sort of maybe answered this question already, because maybe it's not Maha, but who has been the biggest supporter of your writing? If it's Maha, we can skip on.
I mean, Maha's definitely one of them, but I have to mention my parents, because they've just been so amazing. My dad's whole thing growing up was like, you can do whatever you want, you just have to do it 100%. That's always been his thing. Yeah, and so originally I wanted to major in musical theater, and he was like, okay, you can do that. Do it 100%. And when I changed my mind to wanting to be an author, really, like, much easier chance of becoming
so
successful,
much easier.
Of course, with that life switch. He was like, okay, do it 100%. He even helped me with money to publish my indie. He gave me the money to, like, do everything I need to do, and then I'll pay him back someday, hopefully.
But when, like, you hit it big.
Like, no, exactly. But just the fact that, like, he believes in me and is like, I will help you. And I'm very lucky to have parents who can also financially help me. But yeah, they've always been, both my mom and my dad have always been huge, like, supports, and, like, constantly telling me how proud of me they are. And I'm just like, I don't take it for granted, because I'm very lucky to have the parents that I do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, parents can be such, I mean, a good or bad thing, right? Like, some parents will be like, author, really? Like, come on, like, let's get serious. But I love that they were with you 100% and helping you, make this dream happen, because it is so wonderful. It's such an accomplishment, really, something that very few people do in their life. So I'm glad that they were with you. Okay, I just have a couple questions left. They're easy. They're fun. I'd love to know, what's your favorite writing snack or drink? Or do you have one?
Water. I drink water 24. I drink like 7 of these cups a day.
Good job. Like good job.
I drink so much water. I'd say, and then, like, writing snack. I don't know if I have a specific snack for writing, but just in general, goldfish and popcorn are, like, my week. Give me something salty and crunchy. Yeah. I'm good. I'm good to go. Yeah. Always.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Lately, my husband and I have been doing Whole30, which 2 thumbs down. But it's actually really good. We feel really good on it. It's just so hard. But we found these like crackers that are compliant with it, and they are like so salty, garlicky, crunchy. Oh man, I could like down a whole bag of them. They're so good. So good.
I feel that. Yep.
Okay, so my last question, I'd love to know what your favorite book is right now. Not your favorite book of all time, something you've read recently that you just want everybody else to know about.
Okay, let me
turn around.
Let me pull up my phone to tell me what I've read recently.
I do that too. I keep it in my notes app, tracking what I've read.
I literally have just like, oh, you can't see it.
It's too bright. That's okay. There we go.
There we go.
Yes, there we go.
I literally write the days that I start and finished, and then
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. No, I know.
Tell me exactly. Tell me.
The X-Files by Jessica Joyce.
You got an advanced copy of it because I didn't, and I'm so mad.
So Berkeley used to hate me on NetGalley. They would decline every request I ever requested, which is so sad because my dream, like if I ever trad publish one of my adult rom-coms, Berkeley.
Yeah.
Berkeley's my number one choice.
Love
if
Berkeley.
I could publish an adult rom-com with Berkeley someday, I could die happy.
Yeah.
But alternatively, if I only ever indie publish, I will also die happy. Just, you know.
Yes.
Had to put that disclaimer in there as well. But ever since I started working at Barnes & Noble, I put Barnes & Noble in my NetGalley bio. And Berkeley has started approving me now.
There you go.
Work at a bookstore, and then that's how you go. Berkeley will approve you.
I have gotten approved for other Berkeley books on NetGalley, especially recently, but I just didn't get that one. And she's incredible. I'm sure it was amazing.
I love Jessica with my whole heart.
She's great.
She is wonderful, and she's an even better person than she is writer, if that's somehow possible. We've become friends over the past few months because she also lives in California. And nice. I got to go to her launch event and just basically slid into her DMs and hounded her until she became my friend. So
perfect. I love it. Yeah,
the best way to do it, right?
She was my first interview back restarting the podcast this last year. She's so wonderful. And I loved You with a View, and I can't wait. And her novella, if you haven't read it.
Yes, so
good.
So cute. How she can pack a full story into 20,000 words. Like,
it's
she's
stupid.
A wizard. She's magical. She's magical. Yeah. The X-Files, I can't even like put into work. Basically, I was like, the only thing I haven't written the review yet because I can't put into words how I feel about that book yet. But the only thing I have like so far like in my head is like the X-Files, alternatively known as A Masterclass in Yearning, because like
I love it.
Oh my god, it's so visceral and physical and just oh my gosh, she is so freaking talented. So
she's gonna be writing us rom-coms for years to come.
Yep, exactly. So that's the best book I've read so far this year.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that and making me eternally jealous that I have to wait until later this year.
It's okay. That's how I'm feeling about Bride, because that is one I did not get approved for by Allie Hazelwood, and I can't wait. But we only have to wait one more week for that. So
there you go. Well, Emily, thank you so much for letting me interview you, getting to know you, and letting readers kind of get to know you too. And I am super excited for your book Call of the Sea to come out, and I can't wait to see what else you accomplish in the publishing world, whether indie or traditionally. We're excited to see it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. This is my first ever podcast interview. So you get to be my first. So thank you so much. It's such an honor.